Here in section 7.4, we have three different examples of systems of equations to go over. So there's 7.4. So the first example we're going to go over is going to be this equation, or the system of equations. So x squared plus y squared is equal to 10, and y minus x is equal to 2. So it's a little bit different from before, since now we're having x squareds and y squareds in here as well. So the way we solve these is going to be through the method of substitution, which is one of the methods that we discussed in section 6.1. So what we can see, just using this bottom equation, so here's one, here's equation number 2. Equation number 2 tells us, let's just rewrite it again, it's y minus x is equal to 2. So we could easily solve for y here just by adding this x over. And we're going to get y is equal to x plus 2, just from adding this x over to the right-hand side. So now what we can do is we could plug this into equation 1. And so what happens when we do that? Let's just rewrite equation 1 again. It's x squared plus y squared is equal to 10. But now we know that y is the same thing as x plus 2. So we're going to replace this y with an x plus 2. So we're going to have x squared plus x plus 2 squared is equal to 10. Again, all we did here is we took this y and replaced it with x plus 2. Since from using equation 2, we see that y is equal to x plus 2. So now if, just off to the side, let's just figure what this out. This is x plus 2 squared. And if we were going to FOIL this out, just like we have been doing, we were going to end up getting x squared plus 4x plus 4. So then this left-hand side here is going to simplify. It's going to be x squared plus x plus 2 squared, which is the same thing as this. X squared plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 10. Okay, so now let's simplify this left-hand side a bit. We have 2x squareds, so we can write 2x squared, and then just plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 10. So this is a quadratic. We need to set this equal to 0 to solve for x. So we need to subtract this 10 over. So we're going to get 2x squared plus 4x. When we subtract the 10 over, this 4 will have 4 minus 10, which is minus 6. Okay, so now we want to solve this. The first thing we see is that we could take a 2 out from this piece, and this piece. So this is going to be 2x squared plus 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. Okay, and now let's just divide this 2 over to the right-hand side. So divide the left by 2, divide the right by 2. So it cancels on the left-hand side. So we'll have x squared plus 2x minus 3. And on the right-hand side, we just have 0 divided by 2, which is 0. So now all we need to do is solve this equation. X squared plus 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. But this left-hand side factors. It factors into x plus 3, x minus 1. And that's because 3 times minus 1, that's equal to minus 3. And 3 plus minus 1, that's equal to 2. So this factors into this. We set it equal to 0 still. So this tells us that x is going to be minus 3, and x is going to be positive 1. So now what we do with these two numbers. So remember, let's move back up here now. So you remember y is equal to x plus 2. Okay, so we have two x values. We have x is minus 3 and x is 1. So what happens when x is equal to minus 3? Well, when x is equal to minus 3, we plug minus 3 into here. We're going to get y is equal to minus 3 plus 2, which is equal to minus 1. So that tells us that y is equal to minus 1. So when x is minus 3, y is minus 1. So we have the point minus 3 minus 1. Okay, so now what happens when x is equal to positive 1? Well, again, y is equal to x plus 2, but now x is equal to 1. So y is equal to 1 plus 2, which means y is equal to 3. So when x is equal to 1, y is equal to 3, and we get the point 1 comma 3. So then these 2 points, minus 3 minus 1, and 1, 3, these are going to be our two answers to this equation right here. The next example we're going to go over is So x squared plus y squared is equal to 25. And then y squared is equal to x plus 5. Okay, so again, we're going to use substitution. This problem's already given to us that y squared is equal to x plus 5. So here's just equation 2, equation 1. So immediately we can just plug in equation 2 into equation 1. We can replace this y squared with this piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 and plug it into 1. Okay, so that's going to give us, so let's just reroute 1. 1 is x squared plus y squared is equal to 25. But when we plug 2 into it, so y squared is x plus 5. We're going to turn this y squared into an x plus 5. So we're going to get x squared, x plus 5 is equal to 25. Okay, so now we have another quadratic. So we need to get a 0 on one side and everything on the other side. So we're going to subtract this 25 to the left, and we'll have x squared plus x. When we subtract the 25 over, we're going to have minus 20 is equal to 0. But now we can factor this left-hand side. This left-hand side is going to be x plus 5, x minus 4. And that's because 5 times minus 4 is minus 20, and 5 plus minus 4, that's positive 1. And so now, just remaining to solve this, we're going to get x is going to be minus 5, and x is going to be positive 4. So again, we have two answers for x. So we have to see what happens in both situations. So again, we already know here's the equation that tells us what y is. Y squared is equal to x plus 5. Okay, so what happens when x is equal to minus 5? Well, that means that y squared is going to be, so if we plug in minus 5, we'll have minus 5 plus 5, which equals 0. So we have y squared is equal to 0, but then if we square root both sides, that just tells us that y is going to be 0. So when x is minus 5, y is going to be 0. So we have this point. Okay, so now let's see what happens when x is equal to 4. Okay, so when x is 4, we have y squared is equal to 4 plus 5, which means y squared is equal to 9. So we square root both sides. So y is going to equal plus minus the square root of 9. So remember, we're always doing, when you take the square root, it's always plus minus the square root. Over here, we didn't do that because if we did plus minus the square root of 0, we would just get plus minus 0, which are the same thing. Over here, we're going to get two different answers. We're going to get plus square root of 9 minus square root of 9. So that means y is going to be plus minus 3. So we have two answers from this one. When x is 4, y can be plus minus 3. So it can be positive 3 or minus 3. So we're going to get the point 4, 3. And then we're also going to get the point 4 minus 3. Okay, so in this problem, we're going to have these three answers. This one, and this one. In the last example from this section, we'll be solving this one. So x squared minus xy plus 5y squared is equal to 9. And x minus y is equal to 2. So just like in the previous examples, we're going to take this bottom equation, the more simple looking one. So equation number 2. And then we're going to solve for one of the variables and plug it into the first one. So if we just take equation number 2, that's x minus y is equal to 2. We can easily solve for x here just by adding this y over. So then we're going to get x is equal to y plus 2. So now what we're going to do is take this and plug it into 1. So we take equation 1, x squared minus xy plus 5y squared is equal to 9. And now we're going to plug this into this equation. So x is equal to y plus 2. So we're going to have y plus 2 squared minus y plus 2 times y plus 5y squared equals 9. And if we were going to FOIL out y plus 2 squared, we're going to get y squared plus 4y plus 4. If we simplify this middle term, we'll get minus y squared minus 2y. This, just leave it the same, plus 5y squared equal to 9. So now we need to combine all the like terms on the left-hand side. Well, we have a y squared, the minus y squared, and a positive y squared, so those go away. And all we're left with is a 5y squared. we have a minus 2y and a positive 4y, so then we're going to get 2y. And then all we have is this 4. So that's equal to 9. The last thing we need to do now is subtract this 9 over. So we're going to get 5y squared plus 2y. Subtract the 9 over, it turns into a minus 5, is equal to 0. So now we need to solve this equation. If we tried, we're going to see that we won't be able to factor this. So the only way is going to be to use the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula, let's continue this up here. So y equaled negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. And in here, here's our a, here's our b, and here's our c. So we'll have y equals negative b, so negative 2, plus minus the square root of b squared, so 4, then minus 4ac. A is 5, and then c is minus 5. And all over 2 times a, so 10. So if we simplify this, we're going to get minus 2 plus minus. And if we were to simplify this inside, the 4 minus 4 times 5 times negative 5, this is going to turn into 104. And have all that divided by 10. And then if we were to simplify the square root of 104, we would see that it's going to be 2 square root of 26. So the last thing we can do now to simplify this is, well, we could take a 2 out of all these pieces. A 2 out from this, a 2 out from this, and then a 2 out from that. And so what we're going to end up getting is minus 1 plus minus the square root of 26 all over 5. So we have two answers for y. Negative 1 plus the square root of 26 over 5, and negative 1 minus the square root of 26 over 5. And then we also know from this equation x is equal to y plus 2. So let's write that down. X is equal to y plus 2. And we have two possibilities for y. So let's deal with the first one. So when y is equal to minus 1 plus square root of 26 over 5. So when this has happened, x is equal to y plus 2. So y plus 2, this thing plus 2, negative 1 square root of 26 over 5 plus 2. But we need a common denominator. The denominator is 5, and this denominator is 1, so we have to put a 5 on the bottom and a 5 on the top. So this is going to be negative 1 plus square root of 26 over 5 plus 10 over 5. And so that's going to be, so if we add everything together, we'll have negative 1 plus 10, which is 9, plus square root of 26 all over 5. So here's what our x is. When y is this, x is this piece. So we get this answer right here. 9 plus the square root of 26 over 5. And then this is the y value. Minus 1 plus square root of 26 over 5. Okay, so here's our first answer. This is when, so remember, here's what we found for y. When y is the plus version, minus 1 plus square root of 26 over 5 over here, we plug y into this formula to find x. So x is equal to y plus 2. Here's y. We're doing y plus 2. So really we're doing 2 divided by 1. We get our common denominator, which is 5. Combine these two fractions and we get this number. 9 plus the square root of 26 over 5. And so then we see that our point is the x value. This is the x value we just found, comma the y value, and here's the y value. So now we need to do that same thing, but instead of using y as the plus version, we have to use y as the minus version. Okay, so now we'll do the same thing, but for y is equal to minus 1 minus the square root of 26 over 5. And just like before, x is equal to y plus 2. So now x is going to equal y plus 2. So here's y. Then plus 2. So we're going to write it as 2 divided by 1. And so with the common denominator, we're going to have minus 1 minus square root of 26 over 5. And this is going to turn into 10 over 5. We add those two pieces together, we're going to get, so the minus 1 plus the 10, that turns into a 9. 26 over 5. And so then here's our other x value. So when x is going to be minus 26 over 5, that happens when y is this one. Minus 1 minus square root of 26 over 5. And so then here's our other point, the other part of our answer.